Hello, everybody. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio, where our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. The views of the guests may not represent those of the host or the station. Folks, you're going to want to stay tuned to this podcast because I have with me a phenomenal guest. Yes, I say all my guests are phenomenal because they are. But do you want to know how you can help yourself and how you can heal? Well, you're going to want to listen to my guest, Brent Michael Phillips, who is a best-selling author and master healer. The media has called him the #1 most powerful American healer and spiritual teacher. He is a successful MIT-trained engineer, founder of Awakening Dynamics, and author of The Formula of Miracles, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. His Part 2 is what we will discuss today, is the experience, Part 2 of the Formula for Miracles. I want to welcome Brent Michael Phillips to Chatting with Betsy.
Oh, this is great. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. I'm excited for you to be here too, Brent. Okay, I always ask all my authors this. What motivated you to start writing the series of books?
Well, it's actually a very practical thing that I found myself explaining the same ideas and concepts to people over and over and over. And I thought, well, heck, let's just put it into a book so people don't have to drive out to a talk or book a session with me and pay a lot of money to learn these things. So that's how it started. And originally I was just going to write one book, but, once I got started with the process, I ended up with 3. And, the second one is why we're here. That my goal is to share this really life-changing information with people, that there really is a formula for miracles. And, it's so amazing that I'm in this place because I used to be a software engineer. I was a total nerd, a scientist, a skeptic, right? And then I experienced so many miracles, I had to open my mind. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's this whole part of life in the world that I was totally ignorant of. That's so amazing, that can give us so much value, heal our bodies, help us to make money, find love, experience happiness, even achieve enlightenment. That I'm like, hey, I'm going to do everything I can to get this out there because it's sort of my life's mission to educate, to train, to enlighten. And the book just seemed like an obvious channel to reach another set of people. So there you go.
Oh, I really, I love that. What is the difference between the different books?
So you don't have to read them in order, right? It's not like The Lord of the Rings where it's one continuous story. The first book is really the human story. What happened to me? What did I go through? Who were my teachers? Sort of the more of a Lifetime movie kind of thing, right? It's really about the people, the experiences, the emotion. The second book is all about the science. The real informational purpose of the books is to teach people that there is a science behind energy healing and mind power and law of attraction. That there is a consciousness technology that we can all discover and learn to use. So the second book is all about the science of energy healing and how that works. And the third book is sort of where the rubber meets the road. How do we apply this incredible technology to different areas of our lives? And what might we expect to happen?
That sounds amazing, Brent. I know from what I read about you that you were overworked, overstressed, and
Yep.
you had your own health issues. And how did you get into this becoming a healer and a #1 according to the media?
Yeah, it's funny. I never thought I'd do anything like this, right? Growing up, I like most little boys, I wanted to be a fireman, and then I wanted to be a baseball player, right? And then when I got older and I saw that I had a real aptitude for technology, it was pretty easy because when I wanted to figure out what to do with my life, where to go to school, what to study, it was an obvious decision. I was really good with computers. I loved programming. I actually wrote my first computer program when I was 12 years old. I wrote a full computer program.
Wow.
Yep, no joke. I I'm probably the only kid on the planet who asked for an assembly language reference book for his 14th birthday. So I was a pretty hardcore nerd, right? I can quote Star Trek, Monty Python, Lord of the Rings, you name it, right? So I ended up at MIT studying computer science, and that's where I found the internet, which sounds funny today, right? But back in the 80s, no one had ever heard of the internet. So long story short, I became a internet networking programmer specialist at MIT. And when I was in grad school, we became the home base for the World Wide Web Consortium. And so I was literally creating the code that drives the modern internet. Now, of course, it wasn't just me, right? There were probably 1,000 people involved. But one of the things we did was when I was in grad school, me and my lab mates, we sent the first ever live stream of audio and video across the web. And that was, spring of 1994? So we were doing some really cutting edge stuff. And so when the internet boom hit, I'm like, hey, this is my gold rush, right? I was one of the world's top internet programming experts right at the start of the internet boom. And I figured, well, this will be easy. I'll leave MIT, move to California, recruit my lifelong best friend, and we'll start a tech company and make millions of dollars. So that was a good plan, right? And at the time, I figured I'm willing to work really hard for a couple of years to build a company, and then we'll sell it, get a ton of money, and spend our days hot tubbing with supermodels on some tropical island. So that was our plan, right? It sounded like a great plan.
Sounds like a good one.
Yeah, for a couple of young guys, right? Great plan. So it actually went great at first. The very first website we did, the first contract we landed, was to build the website for the launch of the Sony PlayStation in the summer of 1995. So that's pretty good, right? That was our first website.
Yeah.
So a year later, I had 15 people working for me. We had done the website for Sony. We did the website for Disneyland. We did the website for Nissan Motors. We're doing these, big Fortune 500 clients. We even started a second startup company to build online games utilizing the technology I had created when I was at MIT. So it was a really exciting time. I really thought I was going to be hugely successful. But then it all blew up. And in retrospect, the big mistake was starting the second company, because I went from working 60 hours a week to 100 hours a week. And my body just couldn't keep up. And after about a year of that, I started to have major health problems, all sorts of what they call repetitive stress injuries. I had pain in my neck, my back, my wrist, my shoulders, right? And I was having a lot of pain, but I wasn't too concerned at first, because I figured, well, I'll just go to the doctor, and the doctor will give me something, and I'll be fine. Well, because that's how it had always worked up to that point, right? But I didn't get better. I got worse. I spent 3 years in different physical therapy processes only to fail and get kicked up the food chain. So after 3 years, I ended up at the Curlin Job Clinic in West LA, which is the top physical therapy clinic in the Western United States. It's where they work on the Olympians, the professional athletes, right? That's where the Lakers, the Dodgers, et cetera, when they need physical therapy, that's where they go. And I actually met some of my heroes when I was there. It was kind of cool. But the problem was they couldn't help me either. And I wasn't getting better. I was getting worse. So this wasn't just like a little tingle in my wrist. This was severe pain that I had to move in with my parents again, because I was in so much pain some days. I needed my mother to help me just cut my food. That some days I only had a 15-minute drive to work. Some days I'd have to pull over in the middle and rest, because simply holding a steering wheel and driving was too painful. So this was a big deal. That there was some days I was in so much pain I couldn't even dial a phone. No joke. And so it was really
Brent,
bad.
You're pointing out something that's just so, I have to jump in. You were working 100-hour a week, putting in 100 hours a week. That's like too much. That's stress.
It's crazy. Yes.
And I want the audience to know, because I was a caregiver, and I have a huge caregiving audience. And we put in 100 hours a week easily. How stress affects your body. People don't get that. They don't make that connection from the mind to the body. Stress will do a number on your body. Go ahead, Brent. I'm very interested in your story.
And I was working so hard because, again, I thought I'd do this for a year or two, and then I'll cash out with millions of dollars, and then I can take care of myself, right? But eventually, I got kicked up the food chain, and I got in to see the head doctor at Curlin Joe. And I was like, wow, finally, right? This guy will be able to fix me. I was so excited. I was like X in the days on my calendar, right? Finally, I'm going to have my answer. And so I went in to see him, and he's looking at my files, and he just looks up at me, and he goes, well, I'm sorry, son, but there's nothing I, a doctor, can do here. You're always going to be in pain, and you're never going to be able to go back to work. And I was just like, what? And the last thing he said before I left, no joke, he said, tell me, son, is there someone that can take care of you until you die?
Oh, my goodness.
He recommended me for lifetime disability, and I was 27 years old. And those familiar with the system, that's really unusual. It's really rare that someone that young gets recommended for lifetime disability. And so I was crushed. I went and told my best friend, figuring he'd be all, hey, Brent, I got your back. We'll get through this together. No. What happened was he goes, well, if you can't work like you used to, you're of no use to us. He fired me from both of my positions at the companies, sold the website company for several $1 million behind my back. And I found out later, part of it was because he had been secretly dating the woman that I was crazy in love with. And
oh, my goodness. It's like a soap opera.
That's right. It was like a soap opera. He saw my injuries and pain as a convenient excuse to get rid of me. And here's the really sick thing. He had inherited over $10 million a few years before from his late grandfather. So he was set for life. He didn't even need the money. And so he walked away with millions of dollars and the woman I was crazy about. I ended up with severe chronic pain, living on disability with my parents, being told there was no chance of recovery. And that was devastating. I started day drinking. I was using drugs. I was suicidal. But I was lucky. I had a friend of mine turn me on to positive thinking and alternative medicine. And he said, hey, Brent, just because the doctors don't know what to do with you doesn't mean you can't get better. It just means you need to try something else. And so, long story short, I spent 5 years as basically a professional patient, living, in my mom's extra room, scraping by in disability, racking up a gigantic credit card debt, going around to all these different forms of positive thinking and alternative medicine, right? And you name it, I did like so many things. It's ridiculous. Acupuncture, herbs, cleanses, magnets, chi machines, yoga, Pilates, frequency generators, on and on, right? And it was so frustrating because I didn't get better. I just kept getting worse. Nothing worked for me. And after 5 years of this, I got accepted into a program for an experimental surgery that I had found a doctor who was pretty progressive. He's like, hey, Brent, I think this could help you. So I agreed. And I woke up from the surgery and my right arm was paralyzed. And so it was like a whole new level of dysfunction and disability. And at that point, I really thought my life was over. Conventional medicine failed me. Alternative medicine failed me. And I turned to risky experimental treatments, and now my right arm was paralyzed. So it was I couldn't drive, at least not safely, right? I couldn't brush my teeth.
Right.
And during those 5 years, I had met a woman. We got married. And then after the surgery, she decided this is enough, and she left me. And so I'm like, God damn it, how can things get worse, right? And
right,
but
right.
There's a saying, it's always darkest before the dawn.
Yes, yes.
And this is important. It's something I really want the listeners to hear.
Sure.
Just because you don't see how your life could improve doesn't mean it can't. It just means you don't know how. It's sort of like the doctor.
Like that.
The head doctor said, Brent, you will never be out of pain. You will never go back to work. He was very clear about that. But was that actually true? No. What it really meant was, I don't know how to treat you. So just because you don't know how it could happen or you don't think it's possible doesn't mean it can't. And there is some truth. It's always darkest before the dawn. Just when you think you're out of options, that's when the universe opens a window for you to crawl through, right? And here's how it happened for me. My Aunt Lauren had recommended I see this friend of hers, this crazy healer lady named Terry. And I had done, a little bit of hands-on healing. I had tried Reiki healing and pranic healing, and I wasn't really interested because I'm like, you know what? I've tried faith healing. It just seems like a bunch of nonsense. It doesn't do anything, right? But my aunt convinced me, and I went and booked a session with Terry, and I'm so glad I did, because when I went to see her, she was like, okay, Brent, that sucks. You can't move your arm. We can fix that. And I'm like, sure, lady, right? Yeah, you and what army, right? But I was very cynical, understandably, right? After everything I'd been through, I was really cynical, really, really down on everything, really negative. And she talked to me about the subconscious and the power of the mind. And she's like, Brent, don't worry about it. The reason all these treatments failed is no one got into your subconscious. And she spent this hour with me doing this process of subconscious block clearing, which is something I like to do with people in my Healathon webinars so they can experience it for themselves. And it was all very interesting. And at the end of the hour, she's like, okay, we're going to fix your arm now. And I'm like, whatever, right? And I was sitting there. I remember I was looking out the window thinking about what I wanted to get for lunch on the way home, literally, right? And I'm like, hey, maybe I'll go by Whole Foods, get the turkey sandwich I like, right? And when I was doing that, I felt this loud pop and click in my elbow. It was like a little firecracker went off, right? We've all had those little clicks in our joints, right? Especially as we get older. Yeah. Right? It was like that times. It was like that times 1,000. It was so loud it stunned me for a second. I was just like, what? And I remember Terry opened her eyes. She's like, okay, dear, let's try your arm now. And I did, and I was like, oh my God, I could move my arm again. It really was a miraculous instant healing. And I was so amazed by that in that moment, this very skeptical, nerdy engineer and scientist became a fervent devotee of new thought, of energy healing, of spirituality. And I remember I looked at Terry and said something like this. I'm like, Terry, I don't know what you just did, but can you please teach me? And she was like, sure, Brent, we got a training coming up next month. And that was that. But I want to be really honest with everyone, because I think that's important. I want the listeners to know it was not that my whole life was fixed in an hour. That's not what happened. What did happen was my arm, which was paralyzed by the surgery, did instantly heal and never gave me a problem again. But I still had a lot of issues. I still had a lot of pain in my back, my neck, my shoulders. I was broke. I was in debt. I was recovering from a divorce. I mean, all these things, right? But with more time and more clearing and more training, I was able to overcome all those things. It took a while, right? So it wasn't like everything got fixed in an hour. But that gave me the encouragement, the validation to go, hey, Brent, this is your path. This is where you need to go. And I did. And I learned from Terry. It took me 7 years to get certified as a master of energy healing. And after she passed away, I created my own modality based on her teachings as well as my late mentor, Carl Wolf. And that was how we came to Awakening Dynamics. So here we are, and it's been my mission ever since to do my best to get this message out, because I had no idea these things were possible. I mean, the miracles I've seen, I'm nearing the 2,000 miracle mark with my clients, which I'm very proud of. I think I'm at 1,982 or so. I'm within about 20 miracles of 2,000. And I just want to point out that you don't get thousands of miracles by coincidence, do you?
No, you don't.
Right? It'd be like someone that wins the lottery 4 draws in a row. That is not going to happen by coincidence, right? The math is too far against you. There has to be some kind of cheating or influence, right? And
that's right. That's incredible.
And
that's an incredible story.
Yeah. That's why I call it the formula for miracles. But again, it's not a magic wand that's going to make your life instantly the way you want it. There is no such thing. But it is an amazing set of tools of consciousness that allow us to channel the power of our mind and our subconscious and even the soul to create effects in the world, to heal your body, to make more money, to find love, to overcome addiction, to be happier, to develop intuition, to identify your purpose, and ultimately to ascend consciousness towards enlightenment. And this is, I think it's important for me to be here because I come from that world of science and technology. I'm a very rational, down-to-earth kind of person in that way. And what I found is consciousness is technology. We just haven't fully cracked the code yet. And where we're at with consciousness right now is very similar to how humans related to electricity, say, 1,000 years ago. That 1,000 years ago, in the Middle Ages, people weren't stupid, right? They weren't stupid.
Right.
They knew about electricity, right? They saw lightning bolts in a thunderstorm, right? They could feel the shock of static electricity when you touch something in the winter, right? But
That's right.
had no idea how it worked or where it came from or how to use it, right? So it was a phenomena that was experienced, but it was not understood. It could not be replicated or applied as technology. But then, by the 19th century, we figured it out. Maxwell, Tesla, Edison, etc., they cracked the code on electricity. They figured out how it worked. And then we created technology with it. We built electric lights, right? We built computers and cell phones and electric cars, and it powers our homes, our heat, our air conditioning, everything. So we've largely figured out electricity and put it to work for us to do useful things. That's my goal with consciousness. I want to show people there are metaphysical laws of the universe that explain and direct the flow of consciousness. Just like we have Maxwell's equations for electricity, there are equations for energy healing, for consciousness, for intuition, for law of attraction. And like any technology, there's a lot of pieces you have to have in place to get it to work, right? If you're going to build an airplane, there's a lot of things you have to get right. Obviously, you need the engines to create thrust. You have lift and drag, aerodynamics. You need control surfaces to steer. You need landing gear, right? You need a seat for the pilot. You need instruments. There's all these things. And if you're missing even one of them, that airplane may not fly. And where many people are at, where many people are at with their consciousness, with, say, law of attraction, right? Let's say you've been trying to manifest your soulmate or build your business or whatever it may be. There could be 30 things you have to get right. You may have 28 of them right, but that's not enough, right? So you can have an airplane and you have a great engine and nice wings and all that, but you don't have control surfaces. Well, then, you cannot fly that airplane. And if you try, you'll crash and die, right? So the good news is, with law of attraction, you're not going to crash and die if you get it wrong. You're just going to get bad results, right? But so many of us are so much closer to our success than we realize. Just like me, the hour before I went to see Terry that day, I had no idea I was an hour away from experiencing a miracle that would not only give me my life back, but give me a new career. I had no idea. But I was so close. And that's what I want people to know. You are likely so close to many of the things you want. There's just one or two little things you're missing. And when you understand the technology, you can identify it, fill it in, and make things work. And that's why I'm here. I want to show people these simple tools of consciousness and how they work so you can start improving your life.
That is an incredible story, Brent, and thank you for sharing it. And I think, the consciousness and their subconsciousness is like a new frontier to people, that they can actually tap into it and make themselves feel better. I mean, I'm just really starting to understand some of it, and I'm not ashamed to say I'm 64 years old, and I'm really starting to meet, a lot of people that are into the energy healing. And I have to ask you this because I'm curious for my own self. I suffer from migraines. How does one tap into the subconsciousness, to heal?
Sure. So
from something like that.
Yeah. And so that's a great question. So we'll use migraines as our example, right? that whatever your issue is, right? It might be pain, it might be a disease, could be poverty, negative thinking, whatever it is. So we need to understand how we work as humans first. And here's a crazy thing, that my background is in software engineering, right? And that's not a coincidence. That was part of the divine plan, because the way a human being works is actually very much like a computer.
Yes.
That the body is our hardware, right? The subconscious mind is our software. And so the way our lives work is we have code in the subconscious that creates a program that directs every area of our life. So many people don't know this, but all of us have a program inside of us that determines, for example, how much money we make. That's in your subconscious. We have a program inside of us that determines how happy we are, how fulfilled we feel with life, all these things, right? And so, and here's how it goes. That back in the 90s, there was a joke that circulated. It's a blonde joke. So blonde jokes are okay, right?
Right.
Okay. And it went like this. How do you know a blonde has been using your computer? Well, there's black marker and whiteout all over the screen. Pretty funny, right?
Yes.
And it's funny because we all know that drawing on your monitor isn't going to fix your code, right? It's not going to make your program work. But that's exactly how most of us live our lives. We're drawing on the monitor expecting it to fix our programs. No. Do that as much as you like. It doesn't work. Instead, you have to go change the code. You have to debug it, right? And if you have the source code and you know what you're doing, you can go rewrite the code and make it work. The good news is, once you fix the code, you don't have to draw on the monitor anymore, do you? It just works. It's effortless. And what I want people to see is a lot of the time we've spent so much time, energy, money drawing on the monitor. I mean, a lot of Western medicine is drawing on the monitor in the sense that, of course, some doctors are true healers, right? I'm not against doctors. I just think a lot of them are misguided in how they apply their medicine. And so if you, for example, go to a doctor, they're going to run a bunch of tests that put a bunch of numbers on a piece of paper, right? And if they don't like the numbers, they're going to give you a bunch of drugs to take to push the numbers around. So is that actually solving the underlying problem? Generally not. Usually it's just covering up the symptoms, right? And the doctors love that because then you have to go back to them every month and buy more drugs for the whole rest of your life. And they make a huge amount of money, and you never actually fix your problem, do you? Same thing with money.
They throw more and more drugs.
That's right.
They throw more pills at you. This one doesn't work. Well, here's another one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Doctors are experts at putting you on drugs, but most of them know nothing about how to take you off of them. Why? They're not given that training because that's not what the medical establishment and the pharmaceutical companies want. They want you to be taking them every day for the rest of your life because that's how they maximize their profits, right? And so many of us in our lives have been drawing on the monitor. That, for example, money is not about money. Money is about consciousness and beliefs. So if you've been skipping your Starbucks and avocado toast to save an extra, $7 a week to buy Bitcoin, that's great. But that's probably not going to work for most people. Why? If you have a poverty consciousness coded in your subconscious, you can save and invest all you want. It's not going to work. Things are going to go wrong. You'll lose the money. And for anyone that questions that, which is great, I love people that are skeptical. We should always be skeptical and ask questions, right? That's the only way to find the truth, right? Is we all know all these stories about people that win millions and millions of dollars in the lottery, and they're broke or bankrupt a few years later. It's like, what's going on there, right? It's not that lottery winners are particularly stupid. It's just that they have a poverty program running in their subconscious. And if your subconscious is running poverty, it doesn't matter how much money people give you, you'll find a way to lose it. You won't be able to keep it. That's why I say making money isn't just about manipulating money. That's a little part of it. It's about changing your program on the inside. So to get back to your question about migraines, what I would do is I would work with you to help identify what's that code in your subconscious that's creating this. Why did it happen? Because the body is highly intelligent. Many people don't know that. Your body has far more intelligence than your rational mind. That if your body were a computer, the subconscious would process about 40 million bits of information per second. That's a lot, right?
Yeah,
The
it is.
highest geniuses like Albert Einstein, with their rational mind, can process up to 40 bits per second. That's a factor of 1 million difference. That's a big deal, right?
Yes.
And so we got to get into the subconscious because that's where all your power is. So I would ask you questions and use muscle testing to help pinpoint what are the beliefs that are creating this. Because your body certainly knows how to run itself without the migraines. It chose to create that for a reason. We need to go find the code and change the code, and then it's gone. And there's no need to draw on the monitor. And this is where I'm very different than a doctor. You know, I work with you for a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever you need. And then you get your results and your life is better, and then you go on. You don't need me anymore. So it's a very different model. Now, it's harder for me business-wise because I have to constantly find new clients because the ones that come to me, I help improve their lives, then they're off onto the next thing, right? Which is fine. That's why I do it, right, to make a difference. But I would go in, find the codes, find out specifically why does your body think this is helping you, right? There's always a reason your body thinks it's helpful or useful. So if I went and did an intuitive reading on your body and said, why are you giving this poor woman these terrible migraines? It would say, what do you mean? We're giving her exactly what she asked for. Isn't that funny? So your body, yes, is always giving you exactly what you're telling it. And so there's something inside of you, and I have a lot of compassion because I had migraines for almost 1.5 years. It was brutal. And it really opened my heart because I didn't understand how bad it was. I thought a migraine was just a bad headache. It's like, no, it's a whole nother level, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That you're nauseous, you can't see straight, it's hard to eat.
That's true.
It's really bad, right?
Yes,
it's
yes,
not,
and I've been suffering for 50 years.
Yes. And I was able to, it took me a while. It didn't happen overnight. But over the process of about 1.5 years, I was able to figure out what was going on, and they went away. But it was a tough time in my life. I was having maybe 2 or 3 migraine days a month, which is kind of brutal. But the good news is I got past that. The downside is that just like real computer code, not everyone has the same bugs, right? So this set of beliefs I might shift on you in the subconscious to help you heal is likely different from the next person with migraines. So that makes it a little bit challenging. But again, it's no different than software, right? And I don't think it's a coincidence that I spent the first 27 years of my life becoming one of the world's best software engineers, and then was introduced to energy healing, law of attraction, and the universe gave me the opportunity to try to bring the science and engineering to the New Age stuff. And I think it's a beautiful combination. People will say, what's more important? Your rational thinking or your intuition? I'd say they both matter, right? Science and energy both matter. It'd be like if I asked you, what's more helpful to run fast, a strong left leg or a strong right leg? Well, you need both, right? If one leg is much stronger than the other, you're going to run in circles. So for me, I had to develop that feminine aspect of life, the intuitive, the consciousness. And it's a beautiful blend with the rational, the masculine, right? The science, the engineering, the clear thinking, the math. You put the two together, it's incredible. You can really do anything. It is a formula for miracles. But again, it's not a magic wand that makes your life perfect. But you will absolutely experience miracles with this. Every single person does. I've never had a serious student or client who didn't.
So if a person wants to get in touch with you, Brent, they would go on your website.
Yeah, the best way to, absolutely.
and can you give us the website? Can you tell the audience?
So for anybody that wants to learn a little more, hop over to my website at awakeningdynamics.com, and there's a lot of cool stuff there. The first thing you want to do, you'll see a big red arrow at the top of the page that says Save My Seat. I have a live Healathon webinar coming up soon. Click that first, because in the Healathon webinar, I'm going to go much deeper into what we call the 7 sacred secrets of higher dimensional living, and I will explain them. I'll reveal some of the technology behind it, and I will actually do some interactive exercises with every single person there, because I want to get beyond just talking to you about it. I want you to actually experience the work for yourself. I'll walk you through how to check for blocks. I'll walk you through a subconscious clearing process. We will also train you into the quantum field, which is really exciting. That's your introduction to the advanced level of the work. We haven't talked about too much here, but there's a whole level beyond even what we've talked about so far in terms of consciousness. There's also a link to my YouTube channel if you want to learn a little more, get to know me better. That's a great option, as well as the Spiritual Power Quiz. It's a short quiz, take you about 2 minutes, designed to help people identify their hidden spiritual power. And this is important because everybody has one. I had one. I had no idea. And when you help to understand your spiritual power, then we can train you in it and show you how to use that power to really change your life.
That sounds fantastic. I just want to tell the audience, you have nothing to lose by going on and checking out the website. It sounds phenomenal. I looked at your website, but now I'm going to look at it even more thorough. So I could do the Save My Seat. I want to go attend that. And do you do your sessions, I guess, on Zoom? Since
we do
everyone's all
remotely.
over.
Yep. It's funny that I was doing remote work long before COVID. Why? Back when I was developing the internet, I was one of the first people to develop the protocols for remote work. I actually built some of those tools. So I had been working remotely since the early 90s. I some days at my lab in grad school, I didn't even go in. I just worked from home. So it seemed very natural for me to do everything remotely because I had so much experience online. And we use different software, but we use Zoom for the interactive weekend intensives, and we use webinar software for the Healathon. But the Healathon is free, the Power Quiz is free, and if you want to buy a copy of my book, it's $3. Hopefully that won't break the bank.
Oh, okay. And where can people purchase your book, Brent? I know it's on Amazon, but can they get it through your website also? Yeah,
you can go through my website, or you can get it through Amazon on the Kindle. Either way.
Oh, okay. You're fascinating, and this, quantum energy is becoming, I want to say, like the next new frontier. But it's probably always been there, but people don't recognize it. They haven't tapped into that. I'm starting to tap into it myself. I'm 64. I've been suffering with migraines for 50 years. I've had enough. I've had enough. And I just, want to be the best that I could be. I've always had intuition, but how do I improve on that? I mean, what you have to offer people, Brent, is really phenomenal. And I want to thank you for coming on and what you do and helping others. And I really want to encourage the audience, you know what? Open your mind and try new things. This is not, and I want to make this clear to the audience, it's not replacing going to the doctor, okay? We're not saying don't go to the doctor, or discouraging you from what your doctor is treating you. This is in addition to. There's no pills involved. This is in addition to what you are doing, but always seek your physician's advice. I have to throw that out there as a disclaimer. We're not saying don't go to a doctor. Go to a doctor, but also do alternative. Do the quantum. Get into your subconscious. It's amazing that the body can heal itself.
Yes, even
isn't
doctors
it?
know that drugs and surgeries don't heal the body. They just help the body to make it easier to heal itself.
Yes.
So ultimately, the
Um,
body heals itself, period. We're just there to facilitate it, to make it easier, to make it faster.
well, I can't thank you enough, Brent Michael Phillips. It's so interesting talking to you. I could talk to you for another hour. I'd love for you to come back on sometime
Sure, that'd be
and talk
great.
about the quantum
Yeah,
physics.
yeah.
I mean, there's just so much. Is your healing, is it called a special name? Do you have a special name for it?
For what?
For your healing
Oh,
method, is there a special name?
I call it awakening dynamics, and
Oh,
that
okay.
name the name is carefully chosen because a lot of it is based on awakening, and we didn't even get into awakening today because that's part of the advanced work. But it will totally blow your mind. So the awakening is the third gen technology, the quantum field work. The dynamics are all what I call the second gen technology, clearing the subconscious, healings, intuitive readings, law of attraction, manifesting. So when people come, first I will train you in the basics of the second gen technology, then we'll move on to the advanced work. And it really is life changing. That when I met my late mentor Carl and he introduced me to the quantum field work, true story, I had my first session with him the day after I declared bankruptcy. Absolutely true. I didn't have two pennies to rub together. I remember that day one of my friends wanted to have coffee. I lied and said I couldn't go because I didn't have $3 to go buy a cup of coffee, right? And within 72 hours of that session, I had made over $50,000. It was
Wow.
crazy. People were calling me, referring their friends. I sold out my next seminar, which was like 3 months away. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what this crazy old guy just did, but I got to go learn this too, right? So that's part two of the story. Maybe we'll talk about that one next time.
Yes. I mean, I could definitely see. I mean, I wouldn't mean to put you on the spot to come on my show, but
No,
I could definitely, see that you have a lot of information to offer. I mean, if people need to hear this,
Yeah, I think
I
so.
definitely
I mean,
would love to have you on
that's why I'm here.
again.
I'm here to share the message, to let people know you can do things you had no idea of, right? No idea.
That's right.
Yeah, imagine if
That's
you had $1
right.
million in a suitcase under your mattress and you had no idea it was there. And you spent the last 20 years being broke, working two jobs. And then one day you're like, oh my God, we have $1 million under the mattress. Who knew? That's what it feels like when you enter this world. You're like, wow, I really do have these incredible gifts and blessings that you had no idea of. That's part of my job is to point them out to you. That's that's why we do the spiritual power quiz. That you can do incredible things. And just because you don't know today how to get to where you want to be in your life doesn't mean you can't get there. But it does mean you're going to need some help. So that's why I'm here. I'm here to share what I've learned. I don't have all the answers. Nobody does. But I found a few good ones, and I'd love to share them.
Oh, well, thank you, Brent. It's tapping into our selves of what's it called, the potential that we have that we don't know that we have.
Yes, exactly. We all
and
have so many abilities beyond what we thought. I mean, I never
yes.
thought I could do any of this stuff. That would seem crazy. But to do intuitive readings, instant healings, manifesting with the mind, you can do these things, and it's really wonderful. The biggest obstacle we have is what we think we know. That's the biggest obstacle. So if you think you know that you can't heal, well then, you're stuck. If you think you know that you can't get rich, well then, you're stuck. So a lot of the belief work is there to clear out these old ideas, to create a space of possibility for something new, something different, something better. And, I was very skeptical, very cynical, but after seeing a couple thousand miracles, I'm convinced there is something here for sure.
That is just incredible. And I want to thank you, Brent Michael Phillips, for coming on, chatting with Betsy. And I'm looking forward to having you coming on again because you are incredible and have so much to offer that can't be done in just one one interview. So I definitely have to have you on again. And thank you for coming on. Folks, go to awakeningdynamics.com, and Amazon.com has Brent Michael Phillips books. The Formula of Miracles. There's part 1, part 2, part 3. And I would check it out if I were you. And thank you so much, Brent Michael Phillips. I love people who have a passion to help others and to enlighten others. Thank you. I just feel like such a connective energy with you right now. And so I want to thank you for everything that you do. I want to thank Jeannie White, who is station manager, who produces the show, writes the blog. Folks, read the blog because it will have information about Brent Michael Phillips, and you're going to want to go on his website, and you're going to want to take that quiz and attend his webinars. Why not? And I want to thank Lillian Caldwell, who is CEO of Passion World Talk Radio, who makes this all possible, giving people an opportunity to be heard. And if you missed any of this podcast, you can hear it again wherever you hear your favorite podcasts. And please subscribe to Chatting with Betsy, wherever you hear your podcasts. I'm on Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon.com, and many others, because you don't want to miss my phenomenal guest. You don't want to miss when Brent Michael Phillips comes on again. And I just want to thank everyone for listening. Please share this podcast to help others. This is why I'm here. Chatting with Betsy is for you. It's to help other people. And I wish I knew about these resources. I wish I knew Brent Michael Phillips when I was struggling, way back in my youth, but he wasn't doing it then. But I wish there was people like Brent Michael Phillips back in my youth and even in my 30s and 40s. But you know what, folks? It's never too late. It's never too late to change yourself and rewrite your story. So I just want to leave you with that thought. And as I always say, in a world where you can be anything, to please be kind. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio. Bye-bye now.